Hello and welcome to Fowl Plays, where we look at tales of tabletop tragedy that are sure to ruffle some feathers. I'm your host, BossGoose, and in today's story, we have a DM who seems to know what they're doing and invites OP to join a group of mostly new players, the majority of which are women. It's not long before it becomes apparent that things are not quite what they seem, with players abruptly quitting, the DM having passive-aggressive mood swings, and giving preferential treatment to certain players, before things all come to a boiling point and the disturbing secrets behind the scenes are revealed to all. Trigger warnings for sexual assault and harassment. Before we get started though, let's continue our adventure from last time in a game called Mind Your Step, and you'll need a d20 this time. Here's the situation. We managed to get past the vicious bunny at the entrance and have descended into the mines they were guarding. After a bit of travel, we've come across an intersection and need to decide which path is correct. It's going to take a survival check, so I'll leave it in your capable hands. I'm not so good underground, but I'll do my best to help, so go ahead and take that roll with advantage, and we'll see how it goes in 3, 2, 1. And if you rolled a 14 or higher, then great job! You were able to decipher an old sign and found the correct path, so our journey will continue on schedule. Unfortunately, on the other hand, if you rolled below a 14, then we went the wrong way and almost tumbled directly down this pit. Lucky for us, I packed the subscribe button just in case, and if you hit it, then not only can it be used as a compass to help us find our way back to the intersection, but it'll also provide you with updates whenever new content is available on my channel and easy access to tons of stories that'll keep us entertained as we backtrack. Now, without any further delays, it's time to take your seats and wet your beaks as we dive on into today's tale. So, I'm relatively new to tabletop RPGs, only started playing earlier this year. The following horror story takes place over a period of roughly 2.5 months. I had read some stories in green text beforehand, but I didn't expect my first foray into 5e to be so, I don't know, for lack of a better term, just like the simulations. I will be referring to all players involved by the class they were playing to keep things simple. On to the story. I found a Discord server that had DMs running one-shots. I got into one, and after it was over, thanked the DM profusely for making my first ever game so cool. The DM seemed quite excited with how I played my barbarian, and invited me to his server to join his campaigns. He said they generally started as one-shots and often turned into something bigger. I was super happy, of course, my first day of 5e and I already found a campaign. What luck! We played a couple of games and I met the rest of the party, who were all nice and pretty chill. Also entirely female except for DM and me, and with one exception, all new to tabletop RPGs as well. I suppose in hindsight that should have come off as weird, but I was too busy being excited about finding a party so fast. After a few weeks, we played a haunted house game in which things went pretty horrific pretty quickly. With no warning, my character, a female high elf monk, was captured by cultists, strapped down to a table, and violated with a metal rod. I'll admit, I had no idea what to do. I was stunned, but the table immediately erupted into cries of dismay and awkward silence while the DM chuckled. This was the first incident. He said it was a dream sequence, so I played along, though afterwards I told him that the scene had made me very uncomfortable, asked him not to do that again, and that he really needed to clear such topics with the whole table before inserting them into a campaign. He apologized, sort of, saying that it wasn't meant to be serious and he always took people's feelings into account. Incident number 2. I was not present for this, but witnessed the aftermath. Apparently the DM got into a heated argument with some of the players about lollies and started using the usual cringe excuses that people make about their choice of anime. Our paladin suddenly left the game's end server with no explanation. DM assured the rest of us that things were amicable. During this time period, I started to notice that whenever in general voice chat, if people started talking and not responding to him fast enough, or the conversation drifted from whatever he wanted to talk about, he would get huffy and passive-aggressive. He also seemed upset whenever Fighter was not paying attention to him. Incident number 3. During a new campaign, it quickly became apparent to the rest of us that Fighter and Wizard were being prioritized as the focal point of every single interaction, which included a very cringe interaction between a fedora-wearing NPC and Fighter's character. Apparently, Fighter and DM were now dating IRL. Okay, fine. I can see how the favoritism came about. However, it soon came out that Fighter and Wizard were not happy with their new characters, as DM had built them for them to play and work their backstories into the plot, whilst having told the rest of us that no backstory was fine. Fighter was also aghast at the favoritism. Best items, always somehow getting the killing blow, long descriptions of how everything she did was wonderful. Fighter asked him to stop. He got upset. The beginning of the end. As I had started to get the hang of 5e, and DM kept talking about how exhausting it all was, I offered to run a campaign, wanting to learn the ropes of the other side of the screen. I asked for tips, which he happily supplied. However, his tips were just that he never planned anything, never knew where the story was going, and just made things up on the spot until he got bored, strangled the campaign, and then started a new one. When I said I was going to try to run a pre-written module like Lost Mine because, again, I had never done this, he groaned that it was a garbage campaign with no room for improv and the players would just make dumb decisions until I hated playing it. Still, he made a character, a Cleric Warlock multiclass. He told me the mechanics behind it were that the more the party treated his character nice, the more levels of Cleric he would take until he became a true companion. And the more the party was mean to him, the more levels of Warlock he would take until eventually he would side with the BBEG. It sounded like a cool dichotomy to me, at least until the session started, and his character went out of his way to purposely antagonize everyone in the party, and then have his character blubber and then swear vengeance on them for not being able to take a joke. Art imitates life, I guess, because this turned out to be a glimpse of DM's real personality. More on that in a bit. The party made their way through the cave and hearing noises from two different directions, decided to split up. Except for DM, who got mad and claimed that this would sabotage the session. But since he had told me beforehand that splitting the party would cause the TPK during the session, I flipped the rooms and encounters we're in and made sure that both passageways would lead the party back together so that they could explore everything without getting killed. He seemed baffled and then annoyed. A few players mentioned that they got irritated with him interjecting every few minutes with, "You can't do, you can do, don't do," instead of letting me talk, to which he responded that I had asked him for help running the game. Which I admitted was true, I had asked him for pointers, and I did my best to smooth things over, though it really only resulted in him being smarmy that I backed him up. We played one more session the following week before the meltdown happened. I log in to find notifications from everyone in the server. Some people are thanking me for the game I was running but saying they can no longer participate. One person even apologized for ruining my game. Others, including people I don't know, are asking me what happened to DM because DM had left their games or servers with zero explanation. And I have a bunch of confusing messages from DM telling me that the server is now mine and that girls have ruined tabletop RPGs and dating for them. He then blocked us all. There was an argument in the general chat with some messages deleted, and a bunch of people left the server, which I am left scratching my head at. I managed to get a couple people together so I could sort out what had just happened, and hopefully salvage the game I had just started running. What I was able to piece together from talks with everyone involved was that DM had been playing people against each other. Essentially in private messages, he had gotten a few different people to think that other people were mad at them. For example, the player who apologized to me for ruining my session by splitting the party had been convinced by DM that I was miffed at them for doing so, when in reality, the only one upset was DM. I then learned that DM and Paladin had been dating, or at least had been flirting, before DM got super possessive and accused Paladin of flirting with different guys, citing interactions between characters as proof of out-of-character inclination to cheat before breaking things off with them. This is the missing piece to what caused the incident under red flag number 2. DM then started a relationship with Fighter, which was what red flag number 3 was all about. As more and more things were pieced together, Wizard piped up and mentioned that not only were they 17, but DM had made them feel uncomfortable on several occasions. Apparently having sent such things as, "It's a shame you aren't 18 yet," commenting on their attractiveness in selfies, bothering them on social media, and other such As Problem DM was 28, this takes the story out of nice guy territory and straight into online predator. Fighter was then revealed to be 18. Props to them for being the mature one in that relationship. Christ. The reason for DM's meltdown and nuking his server was that he had started to threaten Bard with violence for making a joke about Fighter, which DM seemed to take as a personal attack on himself. He then tried to play it off as also being a joke, but it had apparently been rather serious and Bard had been frightened. Note that Bard is 19. Fighter had had enough of him white knighting and had seen through his manipulative bull, saying that he was treating her like he owned her, and then promptly broke up with him, causing his tantrum. About a week later, none of us had heard anything from him until Wizard informed us that he'd contacted her on social media with a half-baked apology about everything that had happened and that he still wanted to be friends. She then blocked him. Yeah. The only person he attempted to patch things up with and remain in contact with was the underage girl. Man's got issues. Looking back, I suspect that he invited me to the server because of the praise I had heaped upon him after playing a one-shot with him. My naivete about the game fed into his ego, as I treated him as the authority on all things. So I think he may have hoped I would become the person that always backed him or validated his shitty behavior by only giving me his side of the story every time an altercation happened, so he could say, "See, OP agrees with me, you're the unreasonable one," and like that. Following these revelations, the server felt tainted, so using my new admin privileges, I deleted that server and made my own. This tale has a happy ending at least. I and a couple of those players finished that campaign and continue to have great sessions over the last 5 months. We've even picked up some new players. I even got to join a different campaign as a player because he'd left another group high and dry as well. While the circumstances under which we came together were horrific, I think because we went through that fire together, we were a more tight-knit group because of it. So at least one good thing came out of this. Most people aren't lucky enough to have the trash take itself out, and I hope he doesn't do this crap to another unsuspecting group of new players. If you made it this far, thanks for reading. While it's nice to see that the story had a happy ending, it's unfortunate that OP and the rest had to put up with someone like this. DM was almost certainly one of those people who was just using the game as a way to manipulate and gain something from everyone else at the table. First off, while an all-female group isn't unheard of, it feels like based on their age and experience that the DM had cherry-picked them for his group. And I think that OP is right that the only reason he got invited was just to have someone justify DM's more questionable behaviors if they were brought up. Before we get into the creepy real-life stuff, let's start with the assault in the haunted house. If it's not the kind of content that you've advertised to your players, this isn't something that you should just drop in out of nowhere. There are a good amount of people who have suffered real-life traumas like this, and it can trigger some horrible memories and experiences. Even if that's not the case though, sexual assault is one of those things that you're better off either leaving out, or at the very least leaving ambiguous in your game, if it's going to have that dark of a tone. Back to what I said about cherry-picking the group though, I see a lot of evidence that points this way. Over a 2-month period, he had dated and broke up with Paladin, began a relationship with Fighter, and during that flirted with Wizard, 2 of whom were teenagers and one of which was underage, which is really gross. You really shouldn't be saying "I wish you were 18" to someone who's still a minor, no matter how close they are to legal age. Not only is it disturbing, but it reeks of trying to groom them so that you can take advantage of them later. I don't know how many other players there were, but I would not be surprised if messages like this were common. We even got a big example of his manipulations right in the story, with him telling person A that person B is angry with them and vice versa. So DM is clearly a very manipulative person, and who knows what he got away with under the guise of helping people learn D&D and being a mentor. Unfortunately, people like this are well versed in fooling others, and as much as I'd hope that he has, it's unlikely that anything has changed for him aside from the people that he interacts with. Generally speaking, for people like this, in his mind, I'm sure he thought he did nothing wrong, and when the house of cards that he was building fell down, he was all too happy to shift blame to the women for ruining his fun playing D&D. Pretty sure he had some kind of victim complex as well. He had the passive-aggressive behaviors in voice chat, and his character in OP's campaign, which was an interesting concept, but that he just used as an excuse to be a victim, as he acted poorly and then got upset when people called him on that. So in my opinion, the group is far better off without someone like this, and I'm happy to hear that they're still going strong. And whatever hole DM crawled into, let's hope he stays there. Anyways, thanks for checking out my video and sticking around till the end. Hopefully you found it entertaining. I upload new content every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, so make sure you check out my channel for more D&D stories. And if you like this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave me a goosebump in the comments below. Your feedback and support is greatly appreciated. But until next time, be good players.